B'ezrat Hashem, with Hashem's loving grace, today's podcast is entitled The 3-Word Turnaround, and it's a short but cogent lesson in Emunah. Sometimes what appears to be a worst-case scenario is really the best. Without our realizing, the person who we think is the worst enemy is really a best friend, and here's how. Susan Levy was a very successful English teacher in a leading Midwestern high school. She was so talented that after 4 years of teaching, she was promoted to be the head of the English department. And as the group leader of 4 teachers, her salary jumped more than 10%, from $65,000 to $72,000 a year. Well, she loved her new responsibilities as well as teaching literature and composition, and she had so much satisfaction knowing that her students were continuing on to the best universities. Suddenly, everything changed. The principal, her superior whom she was so fond of, retired. It was like losing a loving parent. His replacement was a harsh New England woman who couldn't seem to smile. She ran the faculty like a Marine drill sergeant with no niceties and no nonsense. She was especially stern with the group leaders, Susan included, piling added administrative duties on them and instructing them to be much more demanding of the teachers they were responsible for. Well, by this time, Susan had been in education for 8 years, 4 as a regular teacher and 4 as a group leader. Well, she loved her career until Miss Prissy Principal came on the scene to make her life miserable. Now, after 2 years on the educational rock pile with a slave-driving boss, she decided she was going to quit. That's enough. She couldn't take any more. She asked for a meeting with the principal to inform her at the end of the school year that she would not be returning next September. Well, the principal ushered Susan into her office and asked her to have a seat. And her tone was completely different, no longer harsh and shrill, but soft and cordial. And before Susan had to speak, the principal said, "I owe you an apology, Mrs. Levy. I know that I've been very demanding and not at all nice, but from the day I saw you, I knew that you were destined for great things. And I see the way you interact with the other teachers on your team and with your students, and it's wonderful. But I needed to see it if you were capable of standing up to the demands of administrative responsibilities. You never buckled under my pressure, even though I rarely gave you any positive feedback. Well, this is the thankless task of principals and assistant principals who must withstand demands and frequent ingratitude from the school board, the Department of Education, parents, and faculty. With that said, Mrs. Levy, I want you to know how much I appreciate you. My recommendation to the board to promote you to this position of assistant principal has been approved. Now, if you consent, you receive a 50% increase in salary, and your future will be wide open for more advancement." Well, Susan was floored. She was about to resign when she heard all of this, that her salary is going to jump from the 70s well over to $100,000 a year. The Wicked Witch of the North was nothing other than a guardian angel in disguise, but she had no idea. Well, Susan Levy's story is not at all new. It's an Emunah story with a precedent in the Torah. Jacob's sons thought that the cruel viceroy of Egypt was the root of all their problems. He unjustly accused them of being spies. He jailed Simon. He forced them to tear Benjamin away from their father, and he framed him of burglary. And then the heartless viceroy would have sent their father to an early death. Just as about to begin a bloody armed conflict with him, the viceroy says 2 words in Hebrew, which are 3 in English. "I am Joseph, Ani Yosef." The whole picture turned completely around. Like Susan Levy, only 3,700 years earlier, the brothers realized what they thought was the worst-case scenario was really the absolute best. The brother whom they sold into slavery would now feed them and provide them during the years of famine because he's no longer a slave, he's the viceroy of Egypt. They were so embarrassed that their souls left them, and Hashem had to send angels to force the souls back into their bodies. We all have rough spots in life, and we don't understand what's happening to us, and we don't understand why. But the day is on the way when all the missing pieces come together. We'll understand how everything, including Inquisition, pogroms, and Holocaust, and all the wars, they were all for the best. 3 words will clarify everything. What we thought was the worst-case scenario and the worst nightmares will turn out to be the diamond-studded path to a level of good that we can't fathom. We'll hear 3 words from above. I am Hashem. That's it. No more questions. Everything will make sense. If the brothers were embarrassed when Joseph revealed himself and he was flesh and blood, how are we going to feel when Hashem reveals himself? Well, Emunah today will save us from the worst embarrassment imaginable tomorrow. It's time for Muna, because whether or not we realize it, Hashem is doing everything for the best, and the day when Hashem reveals himself is fast on the way. God bless.